Today, we're looking at a blue ink by Levenger Cobalt Blue. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. There's timestamps down below where you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Now, you can follow me on Instagram as an ink guy, and if you like fountain pen ink reviews, don't forget to subscribe. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Platinum 3776 with a broad nib. Used it to write for a day and to take my notes for this video. In order to have some standardization in my writing samples, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I do test other papers, but those will show up later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in bottle form because that's about the only way that I know to get these inks. To keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X 450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X 750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. Now I want to point out some of the smearing that goes on, and sometimes I just fully take credit, but this smearing occurred minutes after the writing, and it's because it's actually a pretty thick ink. I think it's rather dense. We'll see, it's got some sheening qualities, sort of, to it, but that's what leads to it being able to smear. Clairfontaine has no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 9 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 10 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. I'm looking to see if the sheen's coming through, which it's not. That took 10 seconds. Tomoe River. No bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is slightly lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 12 seconds to dry. Medium is a little bit lighter than the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 15 seconds to dry. Now the extra fine scrubby at the very top, and I don't think it's going to get to come through on camera. There is some sheen that's coming across at the very top. I don't think I'm going to get it. It's all right. It's not in the medium, but I don't get any sheen in the writing. Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1, no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 10 seconds to dry. Medium, just a hair lighter than the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 12 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine and the medium show no color variation, and we didn't get any in the writing. I agree with Vita. I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And very noticeably, at the bottom of this, that is not a blue, but that's a turquoise, a very light turquoise that's at the bottom and pushing its way up. And then it is that very bright blue. Quite interesting. Now across the top, what that actually looks like to me is kind of a dark purple that's just a little bit there. So if you really just look across the top, I don't think that's a gathering of the blue, but a dark purple that's actually there. The one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. Now that turquoise is a bit more noticeable there. It seems to be a little bit darker in this one. Then we get up into that very bright blue. And again, I got a feeling what I'm seeing is a dark, dark purple, just a little bit of it, that faint line all the way across the top. I would think that this ink would have some real depth in its writing for shading, but it doesn't. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, there's no way I would say to use this in a note-taking situation if you wanted to highlight. It looks like Chewbacca. It's not feathery, it's furry. Water is lifting most all of this ink off the page. We do see a couple spots where the white is beginning to come through, so water is getting through the turquoise part. Water's all that I needed. I haven't had any trouble with Levenger inks really for that. The pen flush, it is completely breaking it up. You do easily see the white of the paper coming through where the pen flush was. And the 1/3 bleach solution, it is completely removing it from the paper. That turquoise, oddly, held on a little longer there than I expected. I test viscosity or flow by using a tilt test that I've linked in this video. For the inks I've tested, I have found a average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Levenger's Cobalt Blue has a viscosity of 2.02, making this a wet ink. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average those. Now for the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Levenger's Cobalt Blue has an average dry time of 11 seconds, making this a fast dry ink. Instead of finding inks that look like Levenger's Cobalt Blue, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I went looking for a nice brown, and I settled on Private Reserve's Copper Burst. The second writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia, P. Berger, and White Lines paper. Here we're looking at the yellow Rhodia paper, more looking for any kind of tone change that we're really going to go through for being on a yellow paper. And the thing is, not at all. This gets into the paper quite quickly, which is why it dries so fast, but it's also a very, very opaque color because it's not going through any kind of color change for being on a yellow backdrop. How about P. Berger student grade paper? It's French ruled. It has a lot of bleeding, a lot of ghosting, does not touch the page underneath. You just can't use the back of the page. The 1.1 has feathering, a lot of tiny little feathering, but not the end of the world. No spread, halo, sheen, no shade. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo, sheen, no shade, 3 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo, sheen, no shade, still 3 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we're not getting any. And White Lines paper. Now we do get bleeding, we do get ghosting, oddly much more with the extra fine than the medium. Doesn't touch the back or the page underneath though, just can't use the back of the page. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The medium is about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 4 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we didn't get any, and that is all that I have for the writing samples. So what do I think of Levenger's Cobalt Blue? The swab shows some sheen, but I didn't see any sheen in the writing sample at all. I also didn't get any kind of shading in the writing. Now, it's a very vibrant blue that I really do enjoy using it, and some of their inks have been aggressive, but this one, not so much. This is a very pleasant ink to use. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? It does vary the tone that you get from much lighter on the dry pen to very dark on a very wet pen. I chose a medium flow broad to really get that vivid blue that comes in the middle with this. If you've enjoyed this video and made it this far, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. And if you didn't like it, give me a thumbs down and tell me why. Thanks for watching.